Gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for your service to our nation. President Sisi of Egypt has said that an invasion of Rafah would have catastrophic consequences both for the humanitarian situation and for broader regional peace and security. President Abbas has said, quote, "It would be the biggest catastrophe in the Palestinian people's history." And yet this morning I read that Prime Minister Netanyahu is saying, with or without a hostage deal, he plans to go in to Rafah. Mr. Secretary, we're the greatest nation in the world. We're the most powerful nation in the world. This is not a time for vague ambiguities. Will you please commit today and send a clear message to Mr. Netanyahu that he should not go in to Rafah?
What we have emphasized throughout is that they must do what's necessary to protect the civilians in the battle space. A much better job of what we've seen thus far. And as you know, there are north of 1 million civilians that have moved into that space. That if you're going to conduct operations, then those civilians must be accounted for and hopefully moved out of the area. And certainly, if they were going to conduct operations, we want to see a different approach to those operations as well. But thus far, we've not seen the civilians moved out of the battle space. And again, what they have said is that their operations will be sequential, where they account for the civilians and move the civilians out of harm's way before they would.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Secretary. Would you oppose it if you don't see a plan? If tomorrow he goes in without a plan, would you oppose that?
Of course I would. Yeah.
And would there be consequences in that case if Netanyahu goes in without a plan?
The consequences, of course, that would be determined by the president.
Would it be on the table to stop offensive weapons if he did that?
Again, that's determined by the president. So.
What would be your military advice if he did that?
I'll never share my military advice that I give to the president with anyone. So.
Let me ask this, though. You would certainly oppose it without a plan. Do you, in your years, and you know how much respect I have for you and your service, do you really believe that there is a conceivable plan of evacuation that would save civilian lives and allow Netanyahu to go into Rafah? Could you come up with such a plan?
I could, but it takes time, and of course we see some signs that they are moving towards that direction. But in terms of all of the things that need to take place before an attack happens, we've not seen a number of things that we believe that will have to happen before.
What are those things that you think need to happen in terms of a plan that would give you confidence that civilian lives would be protected?
And they have a plan. The question is, can you execute? Are you executing the plan, and how much time are you allocating for it?
What are the main concerns you have of what you've, either the lack of plan or lack of execution?
Lack of execution.
And what would be the specifics of what you would want to see that they're not doing today?
Making provisions for the civilians wherever you direct them to. Do you have sustainment in that area? Do you have the ability to move them from where they are now to wherever you're going to direct them to? And then are you willing to protect them as you do that? So, the housing, the medical care, all that stuff that needs to be in place. We've seen some signs that some of that's coming together, but clearly not.
And where would they move these 1 million people to? So you're saying before they go into Rafah, they would need to move all the 1 million people out of Rafah who are civilians?
I doubt that they'll move all of them out, but certainly the preponderance of the people, sure. And they can only go north.
Because my time's is almost expired. If there are 300,000 left, I mean, do you have a sense if they were to go in how many deaths, civilian deaths, we're talking about? Or I mean, if they were to go in?
Well, there have been far too many deaths, civilian deaths already, and we certainly, if they were to go in, we certainly would want to see things done in a much different way. and the number of civilian deaths would depend upon what they're doing and how they're doing it. But again, the two things aren't
Gentleman's
mutually
time's
exclusive.
expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr.